Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi Dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. In today's analysis, we're taking a closer, more disciplined look at an important issue tied to Iraq's internal financial structure, specifically the distribution of oil revenues, the ongoing budget tensions with the Kurdistan region, and how international institutions like the IMF view these dynamics. This is a topic that often generates speculation among Iraqi Dinar followers, but today we're going to break it down carefully, separating facts from assumptions and focusing on what it realistically means for Iraq's economy and the dinar. Let's begin with the core of the issue. Iraq is an oil-dependent economy, and the vast majority of government revenues come from oil exports. These revenues are not meant to be distributed as individual stipends to citizens. Instead, they are collected by the federal government and then allocated across the country to fund essential public services. This includes salaries for government employees, funding for schools and hospitals, infrastructure development, water systems, and other critical state functions. In other words, oil revenue is the backbone of Iraq's public sector. It fuels the entire government machinery. When oil prices are strong, Iraq experiences budget surpluses, or at least relative fiscal stability. When prices fall, the pressure on the budget increases significantly. Now, within this system, there is a constitutional and political arrangement regarding how these revenues are shared between the federal government in Baghdad and the regions, including the Kurdistan region in northern Iraq. This is where the controversy comes into play. The Kurdistan region has long argued that it has not been receiving its fair share of federal revenues. Historically, there have been agreements, often informal or inconsistently implemented, about what percentage of the national budget should go to the region. However, disputes over oil exports, revenue transparency, and political differences have repeatedly disrupted these arrangements. As a result, there have been periods where salary payments to public sector employees in the Kurdistan region were delayed or reduced. This has led to financial strain within the region and has also created broader concerns about fiscal unity within Iraq as a whole. From a purely economic perspective, this is not a minor issue. A country's ability to distribute revenues consistently and fairly across all regions is a key indicator of fiscal stability and governance strength. When there are persistent disputes over revenue sharing, it introduces uncertainty into the system. This is where the role of international institutions, particularly the International Monetary Fund, becomes highly relevant. The IMF conducts regular consultations with Iraq, assessing its economic performance, fiscal policies, and structural reforms. These consultations are not just academic exercises. They often come with recommendations that are closely watched by investors, policymakers, and global financial institutions. According to the information we're analyzing today, the IMF has emphasized the importance of ensuring that salary payments to the Kurdistan region are made regularly and without delays. This is a significant point. Why does the IMF focus on something like salary distribution? Because timely and predictable fiscal transfers are essential for macroeconomic stability. When a government fails to meet its salary obligations consistently, it can lead to reduced consumer spending, increased social tension, and a loss of confidence in public institutions. Moreover, irregular payments can disrupt the banking system, particularly in regions where public sector salaries make up a large portion of household income. This can have ripple effects throughout the economy, affecting everything from retail activity to credit markets. So, from the IMF's perspective, ensuring regular payments is not just about fairness, it's about maintaining economic stability and credibility. Now, this brings us to a point that often sparks debate among Iraqi Dinar followers. Some observers interpret IMF recommendations and internal fiscal reforms as signals that a major currency revaluation, often referred to as an RV, could be approaching. It's important to approach this idea with caution and realism. While structural reforms, fiscal discipline, and political stability are indeed important factors in strengthening a country's currency. They do not automatically lead to a sudden or dramatic change in exchange rates. Currencies are influenced by a wide range of factors, including inflation, interest rates, foreign reserves, trade balances, and overall economic productivity. In Iraq's case, the exchange rate is also managed by the central bank, which prioritizes stability over sudden shifts. What we can say is that resolving internal fiscal disputes, such as ensuring consistent revenue sharing with the Kurdistan region, does contribute positively to the overall economic environment. It signals to international observers that Iraq is capable of managing its finances more effectively and maintaining national cohesion. In the short term, if Iraq succeeds in implementing regular and predictable payments to all regions, including Kurdistan, we could see improvements in public sector confidence and local economic activity. Households that rely on government salaries would experience greater financial stability, which in turn supports consumption and small business activity. This could also reduce political tensions, as many of the disputes between Baghdad and the Kurdistan region are tied to financial disagreements. A more stable political environment tends to attract investment, both domestic and foreign. In the longer term, consistent fiscal management is a key building block for broader economic reforms. These include efforts to diversify the economy away from oil, strengthen the private sector, and modernize the financial system. All of these factors are critical for the long-term strength of the Iraqi dinar. However, it's equally important to recognize the challenges. Iraq's reliance on oil revenues means that its fiscal health is still heavily influenced by global oil prices. Even with improved revenue-sharing mechanisms, a significant drop in oil prices could strain the budget and reintroduce tensions. Additionally, implementing IMF recommendations is not always straightforward. It requires political will, administrative capacity, and coordination between different levels of government. In a complex political environment like Iraq's, progress can be uneven. For Iraqi dinar followers, the key takeaway is this: developments like improved revenue distribution and IMF guidance are part of a broader process of economic stabilization and reform. They are positive signs, but they should be viewed within the larger context of gradual progress rather than immediate transformation. It's also worth noting that the IMF's involvement often comes with an emphasis on transparency and accountability. This can lead to reforms in how revenues are tracked, reported, and allocated. Over time, this can strengthen public trust and improve the efficiency of government spending. From a currency perspective, increased transparency and stronger institutions can enhance confidence in the dinar. But again, this is typically a gradual process rather than a sudden shift. Another angle to consider is the impact on Iraq's international relationships. Consistent fiscal policies and adherence to IMF recommendations can improve Iraq's standing with global financial institutions and investors. This can open the door to additional funding, investment opportunities, and economic partnerships. For example, infrastructure projects, energy development, and private sector initiatives often depend on a stable and predictable fiscal environment. When investors see that a country is managing its revenues effectively and resolving internal disputes, they are more likely to commit capital. This, in turn, can create jobs, increase productivity, and support economic growth, all of which are positive for the national currency over time. At the same time, it's important for viewers to remain grounded and avoid overinterpreting individual developments. The idea that a single policy change or IMF recommendation could directly trigger a major currency event is not supported by how modern financial systems operate. Instead, what we're is a series of incremental steps that collectively contribute to a more stable and resilient economy. Revenue sharing, salary payments, fiscal discipline, and institutional reforms are all pieces of a larger puzzle. As these pieces come together, they can create conditions that support a stronger currency. But this process takes time and depends on consistent implementation. In summary, The issue of oil revenue distribution and the dispute with the Kurdistan region is a critical aspect of Iraq's economic landscape. The IMF's emphasis on regular salary payments highlights the importance of fiscal stability and national cohesion. For Iraqi Dinar followers, this development should be seen as part of a broader trend toward improved governance and economic management. It's a positive signal, but one that fits into a longer-term narrative rather than immediate turning point. As always, staying informed with reliable, balanced analysis is essential. Avoid making decisions based on speculation or assumptions, and focus on understanding the underlying economic fundamentals. If you found this analysis helpful and want to continue receiving responsible and factual updates on the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And remember, this content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice.